Hey everybody, good to be back. I've seen quite a few of you today already. A really good crowd. I really like the energy and I love the fact that we're all here together. And it's my pleasure to try to share a few things from my experience how to network. And I want to share some strategies that you can use no matter if you're trying to network tomorrow at the conference with particular people you have set up meetings with, like investors, like it says up here, or tomorrow if you bump into people at the buffet, at lunch or wherever, or if you want to do this here among peers with other founders to be founders. All these activities are important because the younger you are, and several of you are quite young, the more time you'll have when you build a network of connections to really create value out of this, because you meet people here and maybe in 3 years down the road, you'll do something interesting, they'll do something interesting, and there is a mutual way to do business together. All these things happen and they might start here tonight or tomorrow, the day after at Podium. And yeah, it's my pleasure to share some of those things. I have been networking, fundraising, and working for my own businesses for quite a few years. And maybe I give a little view of what my background is, so you can also ask me questions directly or catch me afterwards, and I'm happy to share some more insights. I mean, some of you might know me. I mean, I've been here also last year at Podium, been there on stage as well. I also launched a blog and a podcast where I try to share knowledge for startup founders, in particular about how to get funding and all the activities you should do. One of which, of course, being networking to get funding. I do some webinars online, so if you go to my website, GetFunding.how, you might find those things there. I do workshops, I teach at accelerators and incubators, and I help founders across Europe to fundraise for their startups. This is my passion. And this is one of the photos from last year's Podium conference. Nice little cozy fireside chat there with Thomas Stolfa, who is also an amazing Slovenian-based founder who built up Layer, very big over in the US as well, so amazing founder. If you don't know him, you definitely want to check out what he has done. And what I want to share here during this presentation is really give you some ideas of how you can network better by preparing better, being more active at a networking situation like here or tomorrow at the conference, and also very important what you do after you met a new network contact, because that's almost, if not more important than your first initial contact, because a network is only as strong as the relationship you start building after the initial interaction. If it's just an interaction and then nothing happens, after a year probably the other person doesn't know anymore who you are, that you even met, and all those things, right? And my goal is to give you actionable strategies. I always like to not keep it on a meta level, but really say, hey, this is how I did it. These are some things you could say or do that can help you boost your success. I've done this for 6 months in Silicon Valley. It was very interesting, and I'm going to share a challenge that I put on myself and my friends over there that I want to pass on to you as well. And I've been fundraising for my startups. 2 of my startups have raised over 3 million euros in 3 funding rounds, and that happened over the last 10 years and the 5 years before I worked in sales. And let's be honest, networking, fundraising, these are all sales disciplines where you need to get across an idea, get other people excited about what you do, the project you're working on, your abilities, your personality, right? Give people a reason why they would enjoy staying in touch with you and working with you. And when I think about networking, there are a few big mistakes people do, in the sense that they don't get the maximum results. And like I mentioned before, it has to do with what you do before you meet people, what you do during those situations where you could meet people or do meet people, and what you do afterwards. So people don't prepare well, they don't know how to act at these kind of gatherings or at conferences that is not annoying but actually positive, and where they get a lot of value out of a situation where, let's face it, this room here, it's an amazing opportunity. In 3 days' time, when the conference is over, everybody will be somewhere. This is the place. Tomorrow, there will be in this venue at the hotel, investors, corporates, that if you would try to meet them individually, you would probably spend months, and they're all in one room or in one building during those days. It's a huge opportunity. You want to maximize the output, right? And also the following up. So let's talk about, in the brief time that we have, about, let's start with preparation. And of course, I want to encourage you to use tools available. Podium has a great app where you see all the people. Use it, right? See who is going to be there. There's no excuse for going to a conference saying, I don't know who to meet, so let's just see what happens. You should know who's there. It's in the networking app. You can look those people up on LinkedIn. You can get a feeling for who is it you want to reach out to. I call it the target list. You should always have, if you go to a conference, a list of names and maybe the photos printed next to it or whatever you do, that you can spot those people who you want to get in contact with. It's in your preparation that you know who those people are and that you can focus your time and energy on actually meeting those people. And also very important, if you start engaging with people here or tomorrow at the conference, you want to open the conversation in a way that makes the other person want to have a conversation, that raises the interest, that they understand what you do, what you want from them, and that you're an interesting person working on an interesting project. So I call this the teaser, a short couple of lines of text that you can throw out there to open a conversation that makes it that encourages people, or that makes people curious to hear more what you have to say, right? So these things you should have. Plus, if we are talking about really targeted networking and really reaching out to people that you know, I want to meet that person. This is a founder who's going to be there tomorrow, who built a similar business like mine, and he already raised 3 rounds of funding. I want to meet that person, build a network connection. You should have the why, which is the reason why you want to talk with that person. And here is a little secret. If you open a conversation saying, hey, I'm going to call you Steve now because that's the first name that pops to mind. Hey, Steve, so great that we can chat briefly. The reason why I definitely wanted to spend a few minutes with you is you've built a business successfully in a space that we are just getting started. And I'd be so thankful if you could share some of the learnings you gained that could help me be more successful. And I want to share you what we do. Is that okay? This gives the other person a validation that, okay, this person is not wasting my time. There's a good reason why he or she wants to talk with me. You show respect that you have done your research and know who that person is, the achievements, and you have a fantastic foundation. You're giving a clear guideline of what you want out of this dialogue. So it's going to be a very productive interaction. So having this why is very important. There's no point in approaching an investor saying, I would like some general feedback on my pitch. No, you should know why you actually reached out to that investor. Hey, I know you invested in similar companies. I know you invest in this stage that we're in. I'm curious to get your feedback. If you feel we are funding ready, may I pitch to you the shortest version possible in the next 3 minutes to get your feedback on this? This is a great why, and this is a fantastic start for interaction, where you show to the other person, hey, this is an entrepreneur, this is a business person who knows how these things are supposed to work. They're not boring, they're not wasting time. And these are also the kind of people they want to stay in touch with. They think, okay, I met 50 people today, but there were a handful, you included hopefully. The interaction was different. It had dynamic, it had a reason why it happened. And I felt it got a good output. I could really help that person and all these things. And that's a fantastic foundation to build this connection, not just a moment in time where you talked and it's forgotten, but where you build a network. Network is something permanent. And there are some activities in following up that I'm going to share with you that you can then do to keep enforcing this network even further afterwards. So prepare those things, this preparation. If you spend 2 days at the conference, spend time and money to travel there, maybe buy a ticket, all those things, please invest the extra 1 or 2 days for preparation. Otherwise, you will get maybe 20% of the results you could get. So put the time in. Now at the event, if you meet people that you set a meeting up for, again, have a great opener. Like I said, use this why. This is just a very fluent, smooth way of doing it. But also show that you're in control and taking initiative of this interaction. By opening it, you already say, hey, I would like to get this feedback, but of course, I'm going to share where we stand today and let's have a discussion. So be proactive and deliver the right level of information. If you know it's a 10-minute interaction, don't prepare a 9-minute pitch because there's no time for actually talking. So have the right level of information and have a clear goal in mind. What do I want to get out of this interaction, right? This is for your setup interactions. But For interactions like here tonight or tomorrow, if you bounce into people that you haven't set up a meeting with, I call these lucky instances. And there is this great story. I don't know, who knows the golfer Tiger Woods? Probably several people know it. He used to be very good. Now he's only good. I think he was better earlier, but it was back in the days when he was super successful. He played a great round, shot some really great shots. And afterwards a journalist asked, so Tiger, this was amazing. On hole number 7, from 200 yards out, you shot right to the pin. The ball was right next to the cup. The next hole, you actually from 100 meters away, you shot right into the hole. It's amazing how much luck you got. And Tiger Woods goes, you know, it's interesting. The more I practice, the more luck I seem to have. And it's the same with networking and preparation. You know, if you expose yourself, if you're proactive, if you put yourself out there, the more luck you'll get. Hey, at Podium last year, I met this amazing VC completely by accident. But it happened because you put yourself out there, you pushed your luck, or you exposed yourself to get lucky. But you need to be proactive. So be proactive, and at tonight, make it a principle that you don't stick with one person for the whole night and chat. Even if it's a great chat, make it a principle to meet at least a certain number of people and exchange contacts. Have a meaningful interaction that at the end you know who that person is, what he or she does, and that he or she knows what you do. Exchange contacts and then follow up later. Maybe you meet them again tomorrow, maybe afterwards, and I talk about follow-up strategies. But be proactive, and this is what I did in Silicon Valley. When I went over there, I was there with a bunch of other founders also from Europe, and there were 2 also from Austria. That's where I'm from. And we made it a principle that we go out to at least one networking event every night, and there are plenty of events in Silicon Valley. It's crazy. And there were a few rules, and rule number 1 was if we go in there, we stop talking among each other. We only talk to people we don't know yet. And of course, if there's a room, you come in, everybody's already talking, it's a little bit awkward, I totally understand. And you normally gravitate towards the people you know, and boom, you're back with your friends you already know. Keep that urge, try to resist that urge and make it a game that you do not talk to your friends or the people you already know very well or you know from your hometown or whatever. Make new contacts. And what we also did afterwards, we sometimes traded business cards saying, hey, I met this guy, he's actually in the music industry, and my friend Hans, he was building a startup in that industry, so hey, connect with him, and we traded some contacts. But the principle was, don't hang out with your friends, you're here to network, expose yourselves. At the conference, at the lunchtime, be at the buffet, if you're in that stupid line waiting with your empty plate, chat up the person in front of you or behind you. I don't know, say, you think it's gonna be lobster today or something, right? Just some joke, and you're in a conversation. Everybody else is just as bored as you are waiting there. Everybody will be happy to have a little chit chat. And you just make a little joke and then say, hey, I'm a founder from there and there, what do you do? And they say, yeah, I'm actually an investor from Vienna, and we invest in this and that kind of thing. What does your startup do? Boom, you're in a conversation, right? So expose yourself. Maybe hop around the lunch tables, these little standing tables. Join them, say, hey, is this place free? Yes, you join them. And when you refresh your plate with some more food, you say, hey, it was great talking to you. I'll mingle some more and fetch some more food. Nobody was going to be annoyed by that. And then you go to the next table with your fresh plate, right? So expose yourself. And have the right mindset. Don't be shy, because people who go to conferences, they want to network and meet. Investors want to meet smart founders. Corporates want to interact with founders as well. Everybody wants you, right? And they came here away from the office. People are more relaxed, and they want to talk with you. They want to interact. So this is the right mindset to have. Again, be prepared, have your teaser that you can, if they ask you, so what do you do? In a short version, you can really say something interesting, where if they're somewhat in that field, they go, hey, let's talk some more. And for sure, exchange contacts. Because if you don't exchange contacts, how are you going to follow up and stay in touch? And you do want to follow up and stay in touch. So, yeah, that leads me over to after the event. And this is, like I said, almost, or I think even more important than what you do at the event. if you had an interaction at a setup meeting or some conversation with an investor or some other founder who said, hey, interesting, let's maybe set up a call sometime and talk about tools we use to track our sales or to track our bugs in our development team, whatever it is, right? It's your job to follow up. And my recommendation would be that maybe even the same night, but latest the next day, you send a follow-up email. And in that email, you need to make sure that the other person probably had a ton of meetings and maybe they don't 100% recall who you are and what you talked about. So write the email something like, hey, Joe, was great meeting you yesterday at the lunch buffet. And if you made the joke about the lobster, say, wasn't that a big disappointment? No lobster again this year. Or mention something where they go, oh yeah, that was that conversation. Or if you met at some awkward spot somewhere in a dark corner, said, it was funny when we ran into each other at this very dark corner, but I think it was good that we met there anyway. So they, oh yeah, that was that guy, right? Try to refresh the memory, try to mention something that the other person said, for instance, and either follow up on something you agreed. If they said, send me your pitch deck, here's the pitch deck. You delivered, you're reliable. That's already a very important impulse if we talk about investor contacts. If you talk about more experienced founders, possible mentors, if they give you some feedback, if you say, hey, thanks, was great that we had this 10-minute conversation right after lunch, and what you mentioned about doing more in-depth competitor analysis really stuck in my mind, and we will now invest some more time in actually doing that. Thank you so much for your input. What have you done in that instance? You have shown to that person you can listen, you appreciate the feedback, and you take feedback and work on it. This is a foundation for any mentor-mentee relationship. Mentors want to have the feeling that their mentees listen to what they say, reflect upon it. They don't expect that they do everything or believe every recommendation or idea or follow every idea, but they love the fact when they see they actually heard what I said and they're looking at it. And then let's say a few weeks later you can write another email, hey Bob, and you follow up on your own email saying, hey, at Podium where you gave us the feedback, we totally dug into this and we have this new competitive landscape now. If you could take a look at this, it really opened some eyes for us. So you, again, came back showing you worked on this, you delivered, you are now asking for more input. So this is the way you start a relationship, a strong relationship that is part of your networking. And yeah, no matter what the interaction is, try to follow up the next day, make sure that the other person knows where the contact was, and then stay in touch. What I like to do in a business context with all the investors and business partners that I meet, I write an immediate follow-up email. And then I have a monthly, I call it personal business newsletter because I send it from my personal email address. It's basically the same body of text and maybe I just switch out the name. It's almost like a newsletter, but I send it individually. It's not that many people, right? And I'm just giving an update about what's happening in my world, in my business, in my startup. And that way you stay in touch in a very scalable way. You can send 100 emails once a month. That's almost no work. And you keep all of them updated, and sure enough, what always happens is that people email back, hey, great stuff, fantastic, keep up the good work, or they say, hey, such a good coincidence, again, luck, right? Such a coincidence, you just sent that email, we had a meeting last week and talked about something similar, let's jump on a call and maybe we can do a collaboration there. I even had the case where we pitched to investors, an investor that I would really have loved to have in my first funding round in my previous startup. They decided they will not invest. Only 2 out of 3 partners said yes, so no deal. And when we closed the round, I sent another update saying our KPIs were this, now we raised the funding round with these investors, really great, and we have a new partnership with T-Mobile. And sent this out. And this one investor from Munich actually wrote back, hey Florian, great stuff. Are you still looking for money? Can we still have another call? So they woke up again and they actually started chasing because they saw the traction that we had. So these things, again, luck, right? Like Tiger Woods, these things start to happen if you do that. So summarizing really, after the event, really stand out by following up. You would be surprised how many people I meet who say, yeah, I'm going to send you this and that, and I would love your feedback on this and that, and then they never follow up, or they do it a week later, and I really struggle to understand what did we talk about. So lock in the memory by writing something that they can connect the dots with, and then keep them in orbit, right, around you. You want to keep them not flying away, but you want them to, that you stay memorable for them, that they know what you do, what you're working on, and what your, I don't know, your mindset is, right? So summarizing, prepare well, know who you want to go after. If you're at the conference, go through the listings. If you're here networking, also have in mind, hey, what would really help me would meet founders who are also building a SaaS business, but who are already 1 or 2 years ahead of me. So be clear what would be the best case contacts, and then network and try to find those people and focus your time. Maybe if you meet someone, ask, so what do you do? Oh, I do this and that. Hey, do you actually know a founder here who's in the SaaS space? Yeah, actually I met this guy over there. So have this in mind always. Prepare well and go in. At the event, be proactive, don't hang around with your friends, and make it a principle to meet at least 10 people and exchange the contacts. And then following up, lock in that contact. Make sure the memory stays fresh, exchange some more information, and keep people in orbit. Keep them connected and close to you. And at any time you can reach back out to them, and there is still this tie. They still have this relationship that started maybe here tonight, and they know what you're up to, they know that you're making progress and all these things, and you can then start using those networks for asking for introductions or asking for help or any of those kind of things, right? Because in the end, networking, the value of a network for everybody involved is to give and take value. And with the mentality of paying it forward, help people even if you don't get something in return from them. And if everybody shares this mindset, and I think most of us do, and it's a mindset that came over from Silicon Valley, and with the startup ecosystem, most people embrace it. That way we can really get value out of the networks. And yeah, networking starts tonight. So make it a principle and hustle tonight. Get your first, how many did you challenge? 10? 10 contacts, all right? And that's it, that's wrapping it up. And I don't know, do we do Q&A or otherwise just approach me afterwards? Cool.
All right, thanks to Florian. Now we're going to the discussion part. So I'm inviting Luka to the stage, Alen and Mitja. Mitja, oh, here. All right. Yeah, big round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks. One microphone.
All right. So these guys, the three that you haven't met yet, because you met Florian, they're pretty big in the Slovenian startup ecosystem. So I think in the beginning it'd be good so you get a sense of who they are, what they do, so you just get to know them. So let's start with Alen.
Yeah, most of you met me today. So my name is Alen. I am a business designer, currently freelancing, living in Germany, doing the business design stuff and also mentoring in the design thinking space. I'm also active in the Slovenian ecosystem, even though I live in Germany. So what I do is I try to stay in touch with the ecosystem by recording podcasts where I try to kind of look into the stories of the successful Slovenian founders. Why are they successful? What kind of things do they do? How do they start? How do they develop their ventures and so on? And this is also kind of how I'm building the network, but more about that later.
Also, he used to work for IDEO.
All right, so my name is Luka and I'm the CEO of Equalize. We are a software development company and we are based in Maribor and in London. At the moment we have a team of 24 people and we are working with like startups across the world. So our path started 7 years ago when basically a bunch of students joined together to try to disrupt or to create a startup that would disrupt like the accessibility market. We sort of succeeded, but we definitely got into new ventures, you know, during the next couple of years. So yeah, we still have really big goals for the future, and I'm happy to talk about everything today.
Also, just before Mitja goes, can people in the back just please stay quiet for a bit, because it's really hard to hear. Thank you. Mitja.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mitja Ruzzier. I'm here today as a guest in the evening side. During the day I was leading the workshop about networking. Basically I come from the university, but I try to describe myself as the person who has to change the different kind of hats during the day. So sometimes in the morning I used to be a professor, a full professor of entrepreneurship basically, teaching students about innovation, about internationalization. The academic. Then I switch my hat and try to become mentor to certain students, then think about starting their entrepreneurship career. So I encourage them to take their first step. Later on I become an advisor to some corporates, and in the evening when there's still some time left, I become co-founder of a startup, Amibit, which is quite successful recently. It's in the energy efficiency sector, so we are growing quite fast, and I enjoy very much changing these different kind of personalities you need to combine and transfer experiences. So depending on the hat, you can come to me and ask for different kind of advice of these different areas. Thank you.
So I think what's interesting here is that we have people who work primarily with startups, we have people who work with companies that are mid-stage, and we have people who also work in corporations. So maybe we can start off with, how do your techniques differ based on who you talk to of networking? So I can imagine that for you, it changes quite a lot if you talk to corporates or startups.
Yes, definitely. When you start with corporates, definitely you have to, let's say, to a certain level to come to the really core issue, because they have, of course, really little time to listen to you. You have to be really deliver the top advice they need, but at the same know to speak their language, because you have to speak a different kind of language even in transmitting very similar information. So speaking to a vice president of a corporation, it's a different kind of expression, different kind of networking on a different let's say spots you approach them. Then when you deal with let's say co-founders or startup people, it's another word. You have to, and you need to learn the language. It's the language in between the brackets. It means the way of behavior you need to adopt, to write, to network, and to come to the advice, or maybe give advice, or to come to the information you're looking for. So observe, learn, and of course experiment, like in all areas.
Luka, you also have some experience in this space.
What do you mean specifically?
So how you communicate with corporations, and how you communicate, for example, or how you network with startups.
Well, so basically, from my perspective, I'm typically an introvert person. So I don't really like that much of a spotlight. But in general, I like the concept, like Florian mentioned before, in terms of like not spending that much of time with everybody and meeting everybody around the room. But I was always the sort of person who tried to be as focused as possible. Like on one side, you can have not put all the eggs in one basket, But I was always a person who was thinking about, okay, so you have like this basket, but you need to protect it, by all costs. So this means that even though, for example, when I was attending to the events specifically, I wasn't there to meet like everybody, but I was there to meet like a few like, I know 3 to 4 people. But for them, I did like a really thorough research in terms of how they could help me, how could I get like their attention, like what sort of question should I ask, whether I'm in audience or not, and just try to adapt about that. Because from my experience in business, it was always like the business world and everything is just too vast to have it all under control. So you can have like a laser who is really, really strong and is like can cut like cut like a stone, for example. But if you have like a light that shines really, really bright, and adds value there, but it can't be focused as laser. So I guess it always depends in terms of what you're comfortable with, what you specifically need, and in terms of how it doesn't like totally stress you as a person, so that you can still like, I know people that can be totally happy in the event all day and network with everybody. If I try to do that, I'll need like 12 hours of sleep, just to get sane again.
Sorry if I may. Yeah, sure. I totally agree. I was just nodding because I'm also an introvert, and when I go to this, I hate conferences to a certain extent because there's like so much talking and so much meeting new people that I'm just drained at the end of the day or 2 days. So I try to have a similar approach, try to go deep instead of the wide, and just try to focus my energy on a few individuals and try to, obviously you need some, balance. Sometimes you don't know with whom you can go deep. So you might need to have a little bit of the broadness to meet 5, 6, or 10 people to find 1 or 2 that you can go deep with. But generally, also my experience was that I got the most value out of those really genuine relationships. So when I talk about networking, I like to talk about the genuine networking, like really meeting someone also like on almost like a friendly level. And usually those relationships are the best because they then take you forward.
And it's gotten you access to people who you probably otherwise wouldn't have access to, for example, for your podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Like what I'm trying to say also is that if you build deep relationship with 3 people, that can lead you to more value potentially than 10, but like really shallow, because those 3 can introduce you to some people who are really hard to access. And I would say this was mostly how I'm also getting the guests for the podcast. Was through recommendations, and it's hard to get those people. Some of them you have to chase for 2 years, but then through those recommendations, sometimes it happens in a week. Yeah.
If I were to ask you, what's the most awesome networking experience you've had? What would your answers be? Like it can be the best story, the one that had the best outcome, or the most added value. What would you guys have in mind?
I would definitely recall a couple of nights in Silicon Valley, because for me, I first didn't understand what the hell was going on because everybody was so on their game. You would meet somebody, so what do? This, or you do this and that. Instantly people know, okay, is there any match? Is that remotely relevant for any one of us? If not, they say, hey, okay, it was really great meeting you, let's be in touch, and you move on, and nobody's annoyed by that. It's just going on. And the mindset over there is also, sometimes you meet someone and I built this mobile first travel platform, we're in biotech, but I know a guy who is in travel, I'll do an introduction for you. So people were very quick in offering those intros. And at first it took me a few weeks to really realize. First I thought, okay, maybe I'm like the stupid European and they try to extract money from me, so they recommend and then they come with some consulting contract. But no, they were really open, paying it forward, were curious, and those instances over there where it was just so quick interaction. Okay, seems interesting, let's do some more, let's meet for coffee tomorrow, but here I want to meet more people to see where is a match, and then I do the deeper conversation next day and meet for coffee. And this does not happen like this over here in Europe, but I try to bring a little bit of the spirit over here, the mindset that it is okay to break away from a conversation if it starts going to, and where are you from? And then you talk about vacation trips. It's nice, right? But you don't want to use that too much on a business conference. You're not there to get vacation tips, but you're here to find something that helps your business.
I have a question for you because I'm also not good at that. So how do you politely end a conversation that you don't want to be in?
Yeah, I mean, there are different phrases, like you just say, hey, it was really nice meeting you, let's be in touch. Or, and then you just walk away. Or you just say, hey, it was really great chatting, let's mingle some more, let's meet some more people. And they go, yeah, totally. And nobody's annoyed by that. So when I heard that first, I thought, should I be pissed now? But okay, everybody's doing it, so let's do it.
Also, I think you raised an interesting point, because in your perception of this, or in the American perception of this, what networking really is like setting your story. So the story of who you are as a person, and also the story of what's going to be shared on. So the beginning of word-of-mouth marketing for a startup, for a company, or whatever you do, and that's what people are going to then share around and tell each other about, you know, even at an event or something. So I thought that's cool as well.
Okay. No, it's okay. Well, maybe my experience goes a little bit away from this, because sometimes speaking with about networking, we might go too far, that we become too pushy into want to achieve something, because the best things in my experience don't happen really when we push them, but like more spontaneously. Actually, I used to practice a lot of sports, and if I look back, my most strong ties and my most strong networks come from the times when I used to develop them, which was not intentionally developed, but was an experience-based, and along with networking comes trust. So you build them over years. And so what I want to lead the discussion is, if you had a good experience with certain people, not because of interest, after many years you might come back to them and ask them, it would be like it was yesterday. So sometimes we should not start frontally to develop this relationship for what actually we are looking for straight. We look for investment, we look for this. But maybe spontaneously start a chat, maybe with certain observations, how nice, what's your hobbies. And this is what I wanted to stress today. So our potential of networking maybe is hidden into different areas that we are looking for. So search in other directions to start the discussion, and then slowly bringing it, and maybe find the common points we sharing is interest, and then develop the discussion into the way you want. So this is maybe those relationships that come more spontaneously are more valuable than those who are really pushed. We want to achieve directly something, are more natural and last, in my experience, longer.
And also to follow up with these common points, to perhaps, you know, set up common meetings or something. You know, if it's something, you know, if you play a similar sport, to actually meet up and play the sport, and then throughout that build it.
Yes, of course, all of us have certain interests, and also Poden is not just presentations, it's a lot of breaks, it's discussions, it's today we had some very nice ideas that peer-to-peer networking, it might turn into beer-to-beer networking. So this was a nice lead and start of the discussion, so this might be maybe such a way to start, and maybe something come out or not. So.
So Luka, your most awesome experience.
So basically, from my perspective, the networking events that I had like the most benefit from were always the events where I went alone. You know, so there wasn't anyone I knew. So this basically forced me to meet like new people. And the second, that I always try to, you know, the best events are always when you are either a speaker or presenter, or, you know, because everyone always wants to meet a speaker. You know, you don't really need much effort, you know, just to get like people getting in touch with you. So this is, from my perspective, it was always a way in terms of, okay, how can I provide value to this event? You know, how can I meet the organizers, and how can I, you know, how can I basically see who'll be there in a way, you know, and how to, you know, obviously it's really, really good that event is relevant, and, you know, you like the topic, and again, that it forces you out of your comfort zone, which, you know, I'm kind of used to already in a way.
So just one quick follow-up on this. one good tip I heard, I never used it, but maybe you can. It's like you said, everybody wants to talk to speakers, and like everybody goes to them after the talk, and then there is usually the host who is like alone, and that host actually knows that guy better than anyone else, and not just that guy, but like all the other guys that you want to talk to, and they are just like standing there. So you go and talk to the host. They are usually kind of the one who know everybody in the event and can introduce you to people you want to know. So Simon expects some people today.
Hit me up.
So my most awesome experience, which also talks about me being more the introvert and networking in this way, is I think it was 2010. I was still a student in Ljubljana, and that was back in time when the entrepreneurship was not that popular. And I found like a few friends who were also interested in entrepreneurship. And mind you, this was before you called a startup. It was a company. And we were just all kind of trying to do some things on Alibaba and some stuff. And we decided, okay, maybe we should just meet like once per week. So we had this hidden entrepreneur club, and it was like 10 of us, and every Tuesday we met in one room, and we had to go around some rules to get that room and to have it like in the faculty, actually in the university. But it was really awesome. So I still keep in touch with 80% of those guys, and some of them are also coming to my wedding. So I think it's really kind of it really kind of created the bond, because it was like every week, and we shared. It was like I think that's kind of it.
I think that's similar to what Mitja said. You build common interests and then move the relationship really deep because of those meetings. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can share a few more networking hacks, because what you just mentioned triggered a memory of mine. When I got more and more experienced, and by far I'm not the most experienced person at all, but of course it gets more tougher and tougher to meet people you can learn from the more experience you have, right? And I always wanted to be around people who know more about some things than I do. That's how we learn, right? It's great to dispense knowledge, but I also actively search situations, and they become more and more difficult. So a couple of years ago, I actually reached out to a guy I read about in the newspaper, a Viennese founder who just sold his company to Atlassian in Australia for a good amount of money, and I contacted him and said, congratulations, I'm also a founder, let's go for coffee. And those guys are always bored if they just sold the company, right? They have nothing else to do. And my agenda was to get together with him and find a group of people that have more experience in building businesses than me. And we started, I think now we call each other the group the Experienced Founders Club, which I don't think is a very sexy term. But the idea was, and we strategized together, he loved the idea, and we said, okay, let's set the rules. People can only be accepted if you have at least sold one company or raised more than €1 million for a company of yours, or started, if they're not funded, at least 2 businesses. I think those were the rules. And we try to find these people and bring them in, and we meet twice a year. In winter we go skiing with one overnight stay, and in summer we go hiking into the mountains with one stay in a hut. And it gets us out of the city, away from everything, and we have really interesting conversations, all kinds of stuff. But I really build my own community proactively with, again, an agenda, not to make new friends, but to, of course, make friends, but such friends that also help me in business. So that was the primary target, but of course I don't want to hang around with idiots or assholes, but people I can become friends with. But the agenda was this. And one other thing I think, which is a fantastic, because you said speaker, fantastic hack for your networking is, if you, and I always recommend this to any founder, if you have a startup in any specific area, industry, topic, create your own meetup. Go to meetup.com, and if you're in chatbots and there's already a chatbot group, then create chatbots in the financial industry or whatever your sub-market is. The idea is that it's your community, and that you are the host, and that you have people who see you on stage, and every time you introduce yourself and the idea of this meetup, you can pitch your idea, you infect more people with what you do, and then if there is a good community, you can create a panel discussion. Right? So then you reach out to a VC who invests in chatbots in the fintech, and you don't reach out, I need your money, or let's meet, I want to pitch to you. You say, hey, I'm having this community, of people who are building businesses or interested in this space, would you be willing to join our next month's panel? I'm also going to invite someone from the industry, and one speaker will be from a very established startup. And those 3 people I will meet on eye level as peers who are interested in the topic, but you can be sure that this VC will ask me, so let's have coffee sometime and tell me what you're working on, and then you can play it cool. Yeah, we're not fundraising. No, yeah, but tell us, we'd be really interested. Because for them, it's hunting instinct. They see there is a founder who gets a community together, who is there on stage, who can attract people, which is important as a founder if you want to attract investors, business partners, employees, whatever. So this is a way for you again to expose yourself and have a platform on which you can network. You can reach out to journalists and say, we have this meetup, drop by, have some drinks. If you want, write about it. I think we have really interesting people there, interview some there. I can let you know who will be on my panel. I'm not going to share it with anyone else. You can reach out to corporates who maybe you want them to buy you in 5 years, or this might be your breakthrough #1 client, whatever. You ping the CEO and say, join us. We have this VC already joining, we have this guy. So creating these platforms that you can use to reach out to people on eye level is super powerful.
I think that's really interesting that goes over a lot of people's heads is what you just said, is that successful networking is really building communities. So it's that actually you build meaningful exchanges, and it might be a community of 5 people, as for example in Alen's case was, or it even might be a community of, let's say, 200 people. But it's just building meaningful relationships through these common interests, like Mitja said. And yeah, I think that's very cool.
I have a thought maybe to share. I remember from the times I read this when I prepared my PhD, it was also about a social capital of entrepreneurs. And I read it in a scientific article, and it was about networks of German companies. Actually, at a certain point in a German economy, they were very much, let's say, trustful within these companies. And the idea was, it was like this, the quote goes, networks that bind may turn into networks that blind. Okay, so it's not just the positive effect to accumulate and be stick to the, let's say, very established relationship we have, because this might turn to decrease our efficiency, and we are not open to new opportunities, to new startups, because actually startups bring new ideas, new opportunities, new solutions, new products. And if we stick really within this network of trust and relationship we build with certain companies, because networking is not just personal but also organizational wise. So we must stay still open to new opportunities, so that even ourselves, let's say, prove that the products or sourcing we do must be efficient. So keep an eye open also to the other opportunities would be the advice on this place, so about networks and the trust that is binded in these networks.
So it's not just that we stay in a bubble, for example, and we actually look out of it.
Yeah, we must somehow even look outside this network, just to prove they are still on the right place and functioning as they should.
It's like a reality check.
Yeah.
And it's also really important to learn or to be aware that this is that we are playing a long time game, you know. So it's not like this will happen, or you know, someone will give you like, I know, insane amount of money just 1 week when you met. Obviously this can happen in a way, but it's still, if you're building a community and if you're building your basically brand, this lasts like 3+ years, you know. So what you are doing basically today, basically you are laying out the foundations for, you know, how your life will be in like 3 years from now, you know. And those, and one thing from my perspective, what I think it's really, really important is that you be consistent, and that you know, you follow up and be consistent, and you attend events, and when people see you, you know, from at specific events for, you know, amount of times, it gets like familiar, it gets close to like familiarity. And in this way, you know, it can be much easier to approach someone or to get a rapport with someone, or, you know, to have a presence there. But still, there are obviously a lot of hackish stuff that you can use to you know, to improve your chances of meeting right people. For example, like learning the names and the faces, which is really, really important. If you have a group of people and you know the name of everybody, everybody will sort of like remember you, you know, as a competent person. But in general, this is a long time game that we all are playing in terms of building relationship and community.
Now, Florian's already mentioned some, and you just started this topic as well, but how do you guys follow up? So Florian, you already mentioned it. Alen, for example, you meet these superstar guys that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Do you keep in touch with them? What do you do to keep in touch?
For the podcast, you mean?
Or anything else, you know?
So the first thing that comes to mind is this podcast. So, like I mentioned earlier, when I get to meet them, you gotta kind of get the sense of their energy. Do they actually want to talk to you? Are they interested in you, or they just trying to, you know, get an interview and then get it done? Now, specifically talking about the podcast, right? Sometimes it's just get in for 60 to 90 minutes and then it's out. But with some other people, you can sense that they are also interested in you. And in that cases, then I definitely follow up. But it's not, you know, that I have a spreadsheet saying in 3 weeks I need to follow up with them or anything like that. It's more just the sense of, there's something interesting that I can send to him. You know, sometimes it's just like on Facebook Messenger. Sometimes it's an email. It's really very organic on my side. So this is in terms of following up after the podcast. Now, following up after networking event or something like that, I think that's a must. Like Florian was saying, like if you meet someone and you say you're gonna do something, you definitely have to follow right away, send that document or whatever you wanna do.
But does that mean, because you mentioned Facebook Messenger and whatever, does that mean when you meet someone you add them on LinkedIn and then the next thing you do is you add them on Facebook so you can also comment under their private pictures, you know, create a community, a relationship like that, or?
Yeah, I think you have to distinguish between Facebook and LinkedIn. Get the sense if you can add someone on Facebook or on LinkedIn. I don't add everyone I talk to on Facebook, but I would add most of them on LinkedIn. It just feels more professional, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm intruding in someone's personal life. But on Facebook, I personally don't accept I don't accept those people who I haven't met in person or who are not like my friends or anything like that. So I try to do the same. So I think different platforms have different rules that I try to follow.
So you know someone's very deep connection when you add them on Facebook.
Yeah. But sometimes even after 60 it's not like it depends on the, sometimes we just after 60 or 90-minute conversation, it's already enough if you feel like you went into those topics. But if you just talked about business and stuff, then maybe you still keep it on LinkedIn.
What about you, Luka? How do you follow up?
Well, obviously, you know, I still try to have like pretty limited number of connections in a way, but I try to follow up with, like, whenever I'm in London, I try to like meet all the relevant people in person for a coffee, you know, which obviously it's hard to do en masse in this area, but just to be keep awareness about, you know, our relationships. I usually see what they are. I follow their social media in a way. You know, if there is something exciting happening in their life, I congratulate them, you know, or provide suggestions. But obviously, like for people that I think it's like important to get in touch, it's usually better to have in person, especially in terms of the people that you are having like a business relationship, and you know that, you know, you'll continue to do business relationships with them. And especially, you know, in a B2B sector, it's not like, you know, it's not like that we have capacity to serve, I know, hundreds of clients, you know, because it wouldn't, I wouldn't have enough time, you know, in a way to do that. Although I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of interesting people. I do have like, for every event that I go, I have a LinkedIn app, but a premium version, it's called Sales Navigator, and I can just put tags on it, for example, for, you know, if I'm aware who'll be there, just to see what's happening and the name and the face and everything. And I also use like a couple of tools, like Gmail plugins that similar gives me an update in terms of what happened with what significantly happened in a person's, business account, which is data basically pulled from LinkedIn.
What sort of plugin is that you record?
I can give you a specific name. I'm not totally sure the name, but I can show you later on. But it's a Gmail plugin. Basically, whenever you are writing to someone, there is like a pop-up box that says basically, okay, so this happened. Like this is like last few months of of LinkedIn statuses for this specific person. So this basically makes whatever message I'm writing, it makes it a bit content aware. If you know what I mean.
More,
yeah.
Mitja, what about you? What are your sort of follow-up techniques, especially in this sense towards corporations, because you work a lot with them?
Okay. First, I think it's very important that if we promise something that we're going to do, either to call them, to send them something, to make a follow-up, to make an email, to do it. If we don't do it, we finished. Probably no relationship will evolve from this, okay? There will be no reply if we promise to do it in a week, or let's say in 2 weeks, and we send it after 3 months, probably there will be no reply, okay? This shows our relationship and our seriousness toward the relationship we want to establish. But maybe just to share an experience, I came from US for a conference. I spoke for, I think, with more than 20 startups, and I gave my visit cards to them. And I was just wondering how many will contact me. And I make just, it was one, actually. I made a research, let's say, just and observing my sale, what are my reactions to the ones that, so after a week, I forgot almost all their names, and after 2 weeks, I felt like it was 1 year ago, this conference, okay? Because so many things happen so fast, they evolve, and it was just one startup that came back to me, and I like the idea of making something special to recall who they were. Because actually when they wrote me an email, I didn't remember exactly who they were, but then they gave me something for home, just a small present to recall, and they followed up on that present they gave me to recall who they were. So this maybe, it depends a little bit, but of course, as I said, you need to learn the language of the target, let's say, person you want to approach. So if it's corporate, it's a different than just giving certain t-shirt or something, so it's a different kind of approach you have to do to maybe follow up. But I'm a little bit of the old style, so personal relation or maybe a call or a coffee. It's more familiar than maybe a lot of apps that are used to communicate and maintain the relationship. Okay, I accept the relationship on LinkedIn and so on, but okay, I do not work on them to establish that much. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I think that in corporate world, more this personal relationship function. Of course, they want to be on a different level. Many times they have special clubs where these CEOs meet of bigger companies. They meet in different ways. They have their networks, and it's hardly to enter, but where they are in, that you can speak on a different level to them and approach in a different way.
I mean, there is a little tweak, a little growth hack you can put into this follow-up, because many business people, young business people, founders, if they meet an important person and the person says, yeah, can you send me this and that, they say, yeah, I'll send it tomorrow, and the other person doesn't need it tomorrow. It's fine if it's by next Monday or whatever, but you give like the tightest timeline, and then most of the cases you cannot hold it. Maybe give a little bit longer timeline that you're sure you can achieve it, and then be faster. So write the immediate follow-up. Hey, thanks for the chat. I'll follow up with the material I promised, like we said, latest on Monday, and then send the email on Friday. Take your same email again, click forward so that the thread is there where you said Monday, and then said, hey, here it is already today. So you overachieved your goal. It's a tiny impulse, but again, it's one where you even over-deliver what you promised, and it might subconsciously or consciously go a long way. There's one other thing I just implemented for myself, because I don't know if you know this, you probably all had these kind of situations where you met with someone you already knew for a coffee, and within 30, 45 minutes meeting afterwards, you have like 5 or 6 to-dos of things you could do and follow up, and intros you get and things you should send that person to help him or her. A lot of stuff happening. And every time I had these meetings, I thought, I need to meet more of my people in my network, because every time there's cool stuff coming out of this, but I don't have the time for it. So what I created was a list of names where I know we know each other already, we do similar things, or there's some overlap where every time I get the feeling there's probably, if I shake the tree, something will fall out, right? And I reached out to all of them, and I set up in my calendar 3 half days in 1 week, and there are tools where you can open up your calendar and they can just book time slots. And I opened up 15-minute time slots and sent out emails to, I don't know, 40 people or something, or 30, and in 1 week I had a lot of 15-minute calls. And how I reached out to them was, hey, long time since we spoke, a lot of stuff has happened, I've started a couple new projects, I'm sure a lot of stuff has happened on your end as well, let's do a mutual update, here's the link. And I had these quick calls, people appreciate it because it's just 15 minutes in between, they don't need to go anywhere. And this week was, I mean, I had to take a lot of notes, because after a day of, I don't know, 8 back-to-back calls, you don't recall anything, you have to have good notes, but it was super productive. So, and my goal is to do these every 3 to 6 months. I'm probably gonna fine tune this. Some people probably I can shake the tree every 3 months and cool stuff will happen. Some people I don't need to meet that often, but I'm trying this, and this worked fantastically. People signed up for it. It seems they appreciated it, that it's time boxed. It was great.
That's interesting.
So this just reminds me something to build on that. When you work on your product or whatever, right, you have kind of 2 different schedules. One is the maker schedule, and one is the manager schedule. When you're in the maker schedule, you kind of need longer times to get into deep work, to actually produce something, and that's the time when you don't need interruptions. And when you're in the manager schedule, right, this is people who basically their day is full just of meetings, like one meeting after another, like 15 minutes or 1 hour or whatever. And what helps to me is to separate days when I'm in the maker zone, and then usually the Friday for me is the manager zone, where I do all the admin stuff and where I try to meet with someone currently in Berlin who I want to get to know. So the 4 days I try to not meet anyone, I just do the deep work just for lunch, meeting someone, and then the Friday is kind of the day where I go out and try to meet people. So this is maybe a tool or a tactic you can use after the event, because the event itself is this manager schedule where you can just put it all in that 2 days.
I'll just add this to that. We started a company after we won like a student competition, and we were all around the place, you know, we had like a bunch of interviews and everything, and eventually got to London in Wyra. Wyra is like a business accelerator from Telefonica. They invested in us, but at the same time they sort of like prepared like mentoring and, you know, meeting different people and everything. So basically, like for first month that we've been there were just like mentors, interviewers, then again mentors and people and everything. So we honestly couldn't work, you know. We were there because we've built something really, we wanted to build something really, really cool, but there was so much distraction and so much networking that, you know, it didn't really make sense. So we sort of like locked everything down for like 2 months and just really focused on the product, you know, and we didn't go to any events and meet any new people, and this was great, you know. And once we've got to the place where we actually had something to show, you know, then we started like, you know, like showing ourselves again, you know, more in this event. So sometimes if you want to be a productive, or if you want for your product to succeed, the best thing is to not network, but actually to work on your product, you know? So it always, I guess, depends in terms of what you want to achieve. Because networking for the sake of networking, this doesn't make sense in the end, unless you have like something concrete in a way.
networking is very close to the word not working, okay? Yes, because sometimes some employees, especially in the sales, say we were networking, and this what comes to you were not working actually. So the productivity issue comes here very fast in the forefront. So how effective is your networking, and if you did it with a certain aim, and what were you looking for, or it was just a kind of fun, speaking with people, having discussions about sports, about many things in the life, or it was very intentional networking to achieve certain goals. Okay, we must be here. We must take care what actually our time, because time is very precious, especially in the startup period when you have so many things to do and you need to be focused. You need to be focused to achieve, especially having good product, and then intentionally go to events, maybe thematic oriented, or searching for capital, or searching for talents, or maybe meeting similar startups. So there are different kind of periods that it was already said, and be careful really that this networking does not turn into not working.
All right, so at this point we're opening up to more questions from you guys. I hope there's a lot of questions, so who's gonna ask the first question?
Hi, one question for Florian. You seem to know well how to get out of a conversation at a networking event. Sometimes I'm in a situation where people really want to talk about what they do, and I get a feeling that I'll hurt their feelings if I just walk away. So what I do is I try to find someone on the other side of the room and pretend that they should really talk to him, and I point them into the direction of someone else. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's a good strategy? And if I do it to you during podium, will you be angry? If I just tell them, go to talk to Florian, I think he really can help you, will you be angry?
No, I would assume, first of all, that it's a well-intended introduction, so I would give it the benefit of the doubt, but you're getting out of conversations, yeah. But I have another networking tip right there for you, and I was curious to see the first person who asked a question. If you ask a question in such a setting, here is what I would recommend you do. If you get the microphone, I would say, hey, I'm Steve, I'm a founder of company XYZ, and we do this, this, and this, and my question is the following. And you have already created visibility for yourself and the opportunity for everybody around here who is maybe somewhat relevant, vice versa relevant for you, each other, that they can approach you afterwards. And people rarely do it. And if they do it, they say, hi, my name is Florian, my star is Oman, and my question is, like, what's the company? Who is the guy? Really take your time. If you have a complicated name of your company, even spell it, I don't care. And it's even a great hack, and I would love to see that some of you do it tomorrow at the conference. If the room is full and there are investors and everything, and there is some panel going on and the Q&A, grab the microphone, and the question is really irrelevant. The only reason why you want the microphone is that you even stand up and say, hi, my name is Steve, I'm the founder of blah, 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 and we do this, this, and this, and I have a question for Florian. And whatever, you don't even care what the question is. But now, investors who want to meet founders in that space, boom, they're gonna walk up to you, and that's why you get up and turn a little bit, right? Everybody can see your face. That's a growth hack for making it possible for people to network with you and approach you. Hey, I saw you there in the panel. I'm also in this space. Boom, there you go. Right? So just another trick there.
Any other questions?
All right. How do you go about, maybe you have in mind somebody that you hope turns into a mentor relationship for you? How do you go about building that relationship? Do you ask them the first time, hey, will you mentor me? Or do you want to just kind of talk people through that?
Can I take this one, or who is it for?
Whoever
Everyone?
feels like it,
So
yeah.
the first thing I would say is, imagine you getting an email saying, hey, would you be my mentor? it sounds like unpaid work to me. You know, like, why would I be your mentor? I barely know you. So I wouldn't start with that. I think you develop the mentor-mentee relationship through time, and it's organic, and I would just stop here.
Yeah, I also think it's really hard to do this matchmaking, like, you know, if people don't really know, you know, themselves or the problem really, really well, you know, in a way.
I receive plenty of such emails from students, actually, with the same question, but they differ a lot. Some are well-prepared emails and not just asking for mentorship, but explaining, actually making their homework before they write to me, okay, in very simple words. So demonstrating that they spend much more time that I need to spend to help them, okay? So it's not just explain them the basics of their job, not just what were they asking me for, okay? This is very important in deciding whether I'm gonna help them or not.
Yeah, I hate when someone sends me a pitch deck. Can you give me feedback on my pitch deck? Yeah, what aspect of it, right? It's ill prepared. But I mean, the younger you are, the more power you have, the more chances you have getting into a mentor-mentee, as a mentee into a relationship. Because I feel when I was younger, I totally underestimated the power that came just from being young and energized and curious, and just that older people that could have been 40 years old people at that time, they were old guys, that they just see themselves in me somehow or something. So don't underestimate the power of your youth. If you come well prepared, ask some clear questions, like I explained before, maybe have some why you reached out to that person, and then just follow up, show that you listened, all these things. That's how I fall in love with founders, who then I spend a lot of time with helping, because I see they listen, they process this, they appreciate this. So they give me here and there a little compliment. I like that too, right? So just how humans interact, you know, this give and take. And I wouldn't ask them for being a mentor. Why would you ask? I mean, you should only ask if you want to use their photo on your slide deck. Then I think you should ask. Otherwise, it's you don't do that. But before that, I don't care if it's a formal thing. If they spend time with me, that's all I need as a founder, right? And yeah.
Hi, I'm Alexander from Mind Company from Ukraine. So one of the biggest digital media in Ukraine. So my question to dear colleagues is following. If it's okay during networking to be in such situation as I am, for example, I'm co-founder of Mind, and I presented Mind to investors and to speakers, colleagues, but then I'm a co-founder of another project. So when it's a different sphere, it's sales for automation, it's a SaaS IT system. So if it's okay if I came here to present one project, but then I can switch, and I'm interested to switch during discussion to another project because I see some opportunities or potential cooperation. So how do you perceive this kind of networking situation? Thank you.
Well, from my perspective, this is a bit of a tricky situation where you need to be careful, you know, how you present yourself. If you are searching for investor for one specific project, you know, for your startup, and you mention to him like, okay, so this is what we do, but at the same time I'm also a founder of another project, this won't really look that serious, and you will drastically like reduce the chances of you getting founded. So I guess it's up to you, you know, how to disclose that. Obviously you have like founders capable of running several different companies at once, but the chance, you know, that investor will trust you based on the first, you know, appearance and, you know, just discussion, it will become much more harder. So if I were you, I would focus on one thing specifically and try to really learn like like how to present this well, and possibly know, with whom you're talking about. And I would try to avoid basically using like other topic at all, because it just adds distraction to the mix.
Yes, I think that what investors actually, especially in the early stages, look is commitment. And if you, in speaking in 10 minutes, mention that you're engaged in 3 startups, I would ask you, well, actually, what is your commitment to which you are actually dedicated, where you are, because you have to be passionate about your idea. So you are hardly passionate about 3 startups, okay? You could be 1, maybe 2, but it's better to leave it for tomorrow's meeting. But if you have plenty of projects, then it's hardly to demonstrate your commitment, what I would look for if I would be an investor, especially in the early stage.
That's if you network with investors, right? But if you do it among business people, today I met an Austrian entrepreneur and he said he has 4 businesses. I mean, that makes me curious to hear about each of those, and I find it interesting. And so if you network among peers and you just switch and say, hey, I have another business actually, and maybe we can have some common grounds there, let me tell you about that. I don't see any issue, but with investors, it's a good point.
Yeah, if you're talking to investors, it might be better if you have 2 co-founders, one co-founder takes one project, the other co-founder talks about the other project, and you just make it like that. And you each talk about the specific project, and that's it. And you won't have this trouble. Any other questions? All right, so I'm sure this means that you're going to ask a lot of questions during the networking part. So I'd like to thank our panel guests. I think it was a very quality discussion. And yeah, give a big round of applause to these guys here.